Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Hamre. I run a little think tank in Washington, D.C. Called the Center for Strategic International Studies. I'm fortunate to have Muhtar on my board, and so he gave me an opportunity to be with him, and I'm delighted to be here. Let me frame this discussion a bit. It's not well appreciated, the role that the public and private sectors play jointly in development. The federal government will spend about $40 billion on development assistance this next year. The private sector, nonprofit private sector, will spend about $60 billion, but the profit-seeking private sector will spend $2 trillion on supply chain in the same region. An overwhelming role that the private sector plays, the profit-seeking private sector. And there is a group of very wise new corporations led by Coca-Cola that have been championing a new understanding about what development really means and the opportunities. It's not about corporate social responsibility. It's about a business model. And that's what we're going to explore, and no one has done more to pioneer that than you, Muhtar, and Coca-Cola. You have frequently spoken about something you call the Golden Triangle. Why don't you share with us what that means?
In simple terms, John, what the Golden Triangle for us means is having government collaborate with business and civil society, NGOs, universities, and so forth, to deal with some of the major social issues in the world, whether it's youth unemployment, whether it's the environment, whether it is inequality, gender equality, all of the things that are big social issues that face us in the world, because of one simple thing, which is that government can't do it alone, business can't do it alone, and certainly civil society also can't do it alone. So I think this whole summit today and tomorrow and so forth is about also the P3, said in another way, describing the Golden Triangle. And we have, I think, certainly very good, ample proof that when you can bring together that Golden Triangle to deal with some of those issues, you can really win. And I'll give you an example of a program that we have, just one of many, in Africa called The Last Mile, where we partnered with NGO, the governments of Ghana and Tanzania, and used our own supply chain system to get life-enhancing and life-preserving medicine to the last mile in those countries. And we were able to increase the availability of those medicines by 30 to 40%. And because it worked so well, then we partnered again with USAID and the Gates Foundation to take that model with a $21 million new partnership to get that model to 8 more countries in Africa to make life-enhancing, life-preserving medicine available to different the ends of the veins, so to speak, in those countries.
Muhtar, but that's obviously very good for people. How has it also helped you as a company?
Well, it's very simple. We believe, we operate in 208 nations around the world. We believe that in all of those countries, if we can do something to help strengthen communities that we serve with our beverages, with our products, with our brands, then we will have a better business. It comes from that algebra. Stronger communities, sustainable, stronger communities, sustainable, stronger business. That's the algebra. That's the model. And we have framed it around 3 W's for us. And so if it falls within these 3 W's, we will find partners in government, in NGOs, in universities, create the Golden Triangle with us being the business side, and basically go about strengthening those communities. One is women, when you empower women, those communities get stronger. So we have a program to empower 5 million women economically by 2020. It's the biggest program of its kind in the world. The period is 10 years, 2010 to 2020. And again, we partner with the IFC, who have allocated $100 million of microcredit. We have traveling buses around countries, whether it's in India or Africa or other parts of Asia or Latin America. We train, we have NGO partners in countries. We identify the women entrepreneurs, candidates. We train them, link them up to microcredit, and then they become distributors, or they become shopkeepers, small shopkeepers, bodegas, and they flourish, and they hire more women, and that's the way we model works. And then the second W is water replenishment, which is part of the piece on the environment, where we have become the first business in the world in beverages or consumer products to become water neutral. We had a goal to become water neutral by 2020. Again, we put that goal out in 2010. And by 2015, in August this year, we announced that we have become water neutral. That means the 369 billion liters of water that we use annually right now, current numbers, we give back to the world, and it's again audited
in the same quality
externally. Pardon me?
In the same or better quality.
Well, we give back in the same quality that we take it.
Right.
Absolutely. And so, and that's done through various means: technology, recycling, and water replenishment projects. And the third is well-being in every community we operate, to support, together with the Golden Triangle, well-being programs for our consumers.
Muhtar, how well do governments understand what you're trying to do and then become your partner?
Well, I think more and more governments today realize they can't do it alone. But I think when we talk about governments, let it not go unnoticed that it's not just national governments. Subnational governments are often much more collaborative and more able and capable as partners than national governments. In many cases, national governments are more prone to talking and less prone to action. And subnational governments that are mayors, governors, are act much more like businesses, and they can act much quicker. And so we often partner with mayors, partner with governors, big or large or small, for some of these Golden Triangle projects.
I'm glad we're in New York and not in Washington right now. I think it's exactly right. Can we go back to the water issue? Was this hard to adopt that policy with your board? Did your board say that's an expense that we just shouldn't burden ourselves with? How did, inside the corporation, how did that work?
Quite the contrary, because actually this is why these are sustainable programs, and they're not anyway good things to have on a social responsibility report. When we lower our water usage, our costs of sale and costs of production come down, because water is not free. We operate 1,004 factories in 208 nations, and we use a lot of water. That water has a cost. Technology is applied to reduce the amount of water. So in the past, we generally connect our products 2 billion times every day with consumers around the world. So they basically invite our products into their lives 2 billion times every day, 3,000 brands, products. That takes a lot of water to produce. When we reduce the amount of water, the costs go down in production. It's a perfect business sense. It makes perfect business sense. So there's it's a win-win. The environment wins, the business wins. And I think, in all of these programs, Golden Triangle programs, there has to be a direct connection to business. When we empower women entrepreneurs, they become retailers around the world for us. They don't only sell our beverages or our brands, they sell many other products, but they have an incredible loyalty to us because we started them up. And they go out and hire more women. The community gets stronger. Our basically retailing business gets stronger. Or if they become distributors, again, our distribution business gets stronger, although they distribute other products too. And I think that's the model that really has to work in all of these situations. You don't have to justify it. It's basically part of your business model.
Yeah, this is the point that I wanted to make again to all of you. I'm told about 70% of the audience here are business people. This is not corporate social responsibility. This is not a tax you pay, because you want to be a good citizen. This is baked into the productivity and the profitability of your operation.
Yep.
And you've done that more than anybody.
Well, I don't know. We certainly always have to do more every day in this area. We're certainly not happy. We're, I would say, constructively discontent, and I think learning every day, and we've got a long way to go. But certainly, we know that we can prove the algebra where communities get stronger. As a result of all these things, business gets better.
Forgive me, I need to just make a technical announcement. Somebody kicked over the monitor that has the timer, so I have no idea where we are with the timer. So somebody lift that timer up there for me so I can know where the hell we are here. Muhtar, you're all over the world. You probably have a better sense, thank you. You have a better sense of what the state of the global economy is than probably most people. What's your sense of it right now?
I think the sense is certainly volatility. Is the norm. Things that used to be an old model, everything is in a cycle. The world goes around cyclically, related to exchange rates, related to economies. There's a period related to commodities. Everything was in a cycle of 3-4 years, goes one way and then it goes the other way. And emerging markets grow always faster than developed markets. It was a kind of a model that we were all used to for the last 20 years. That has changed. And so it's very volatile. There's no model. It can go, the cycles, we certainly don't know whether they exist anymore. And so we have to operate in a world that is changing faster than anyone imagined. And more surprises every single day, and so therefore we have to be prepared, more resilient, and certainly one thing that really we have to all watch for, though, is youth unemployment, because I think that has the propensity, if we can't control it, youth unemployment, to break the social mosaic in the world too. And I think when you look at the numbers, actually, over the last 30 years, I think everyone can be really happy where the world is. A billion new middle class, life expectancy gone up from 55 to 70, attendance of schools have gone up, world GDP has doubled. All these are great numbers, but inside that, double click and you have huge problems coming at us in terms of social inequality, in terms of income inequality, and in terms of a world where if we cannot find a solution, and that's, again, the G20 meetings are going to take place next month or in a month and a half, and that's the key things on the agenda are youth unemployment. How does the world deal with it on a practical basis? Actionable points to deal with youth unemployment, supporting finance for SMEs, because the SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, are the backbone of the global economy. And all big companies like myself, we have hundreds, thousands of smaller companies supplying us with their goods in the supply chain. And those companies have to be supported because they're critical to the economy, and they have to continue to invest so they can employ more people. And then infrastructure development, and then trade facilitation. There's the trade facilitation agreement in the world has been signed by all nations, but it's not being executed. Just that single thing, trade facilitation agreement that was signed in Jakarta a few years ago. If that is executed, that will generate 20 million new jobs.
My gosh.
And it's just not executed. Countries just can't get themselves to act upon what they signed.
Let me ask a specific question about Coca-Cola. I mean, there's probably no other brand that you would say is more identified as being American than Coca-Cola, but you can't sell your product around the world as an American product because America isn't always popular around the world. So how do you straddle this responsibility to both be, you're a great American company, but you have to be a good neighbor in every country? How do you do that?
Well, it's because of our model, which is a global local model. And we operate with 300 very, very able local partners around the world. We call them Coca-Cola bottlers. And through that local global model, it's a business in every country that it operates. And so, it's perhaps surprising to the world that, there are places around the world which don't, on the surface, seem to be very friendly to the United States, but they consume a lot of our brands and products every single day, Iran being one of them.
You're going to sell more?
Pardon me?
In Iran? It's going to be this market will open up even more, do you think?
I don't know. I think it'll be good for the world if it opens up more, but certainly, they buy many billions servings of Iranian consumers buy many billion servings of Coca-Cola products in any given year, right now.
You've been there.
I haven't been there, but we have a partner that's...
Yes, that's there, on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Muhtar, let me just ask, we're coming up on an election here. You're an internationalist. You travel the world. You see the role and the positive impact business plays around the world. What would you be telling to the next president a year from now when we have him? What would you say that would be the most important thing to be doing as he or she starts out?
Well, look, I think one of the frustrations for me has been there's just two areas, very simple, two areas of low-hanging fruit. One is tax and fiscal reform in the United States that hasn't happened. We're one of the very few countries in the world that does not have a territorial tax system. And so every American company in the world competes with other companies, whether they're European companies or whether they're Asian companies. Those companies operate in a territorial tax system. They go and do business in a certain country. Take Korea. We go out and do business in Korea. If we make a profit in Korea, we pay the 19.5% tax there. And then on top of that, if we want to bring the proceeds back to the United States, we have to pay another 20% tax on top of that. Another company from Europe goes and does business in Korea, take a Nestle. They would then make a profit, pay 19%, and they're done with it. They can do whatever they want with the funds, invest it anywhere, take it back home, whatever they want. And so it is not a 21st century model to what we have in the United States. The second is immigration reform. It dates back to a quota system way back, and everyone actually in the world wants to come here, educated, doctors, people who have degrees, but instead they can't come here because of the way our immigration system works. They all go to Canada, and that's not a very good model. Again, it's dating back 70, 80 years, the quota system. Mm-hmm. And I think, and then you've got all the people that need to, be legalized. You've got then, the issues around the borders, but there's a 4-point plan that could have been implemented and should be implemented to have immigration reform. So those are two things, I think, that can change, not everything, but certainly two areas where it can make American companies more competitive and have a simplified tax structure so that there aren't all these loopholes and it doesn't take, an army of people to fill a tax form. And then you've got the immigration. there are many other areas which we can go to, but in the interest of time, I just mentioned those two.
Well, I think we got 25 candidates. I hope they're listening. I mean, that's a very good thing. Muhtar, we've got just a few minutes left. Let me ask, what most worries you every day when you're thinking about the future, how you're guiding your company? And
I think what would keep me up is complacency, lack of humility, getting used to a status quo. Those are the things that really worry me, and I think, and you know, generally in the world we live in, also the lack of respect for cash, because cash is almost disappearing and no one ever sees it. It's just some theoretical thing. No one carries it anymore, and I think, you know, those are the kind of things that I'd say I try to make sure that I remind myself every day.
it was dark, but half of the people started reaching for their wallet when you said that. They probably just want to make sure. And what gives you optimism then, looking forward? We're just going to make that the end. We want to end on
I think the youth of their entrepreneurial zeal and their attitude about life, and their way of thinking about their future, their world, I think gives me hope for the future. I'd say, you know, the great thing about millennials today, I learn from them all the time. That's why we support the Global Shapers program of the World Economic Forum. We're the founding supporter with Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, and we've created 300 hubs around the world, 19 to 25-year-old, generally entrepreneurs, but also young executives. And every time I'm with them, you know, I learn something. And I think as a result of them now joining the World Economic Forum, it's been a much better dialogue on stage. So you can have a head of state, you can have a CEO, and you can have a global shaper talking about the same thing. And they have such a different perspective, and a perspective that we all need to respect and learn from. That's what gives me hope for the future.
Well, it would have been a better interview if it had a global shaper instead of me, an old guy. But would you all please join with your applause and say thank you?
Thank you. Thanks.